Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Michael and I am attempting to run a sub 3-hour marathon at the Chicago Marathon here on October 11th, 19 weeks ago. In this video, we're going to be talking with my coach. He's going to give me some advice and a lot of information that you can also use yourself. Before we do the coach interview, let's have a quick internet debate because over the last couple of weeks running here in Chicago, the lakefront's closed. So a lot of people are running in the street. I run on a one-way that also has a bike lane. Traffic is coming toward me. I think that's the right way to go. But I've been yelled at multiple times in the last week because some runners are so upset that I want to potentially see the car that's about to hit me. They think I should be going with the flow of traffic. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Obviously, there's no better way to figure anything out than a quick internet debate. I guess the question is, should I be running with the flow of traffic or against the flow of traffic? You decide. Let me know.
Welcome, Keith. Keith is my coach for my Breaking 3 attempt, and I'll quickly introduce you, Keith. You are the coach of the Fort Worth Track Club, a former professional triathlete, and a USA Triathlon Level 2 certified coach. Thank you for joining. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
How you doing this morning?
Pretty good.
Yeah, so far what I've done, we are really only 2 weeks into working with each other. But I've already shared my ambitious goal with you and others of hopefully running under 3 hours for the marathon here in Chicago on October the 11th. Really quickly, your thoughts on that and our coaching relationship?
Well, I'm really excited to work with you because we go pretty far back. I guess we've known each other about 10 years, right?
Yeah, and so, you've never coached me before. We've been friends all the way back to Oklahoma State where we went to school.
Yeah.
So first time.
I'm really excited about it.
You're gonna get a real inside look at some of my pathetic numbers, mostly my sprint, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, as I mentioned, I'm hopeful that we can kind of talk about my sub 3 attempt coming up, but then others that are watching can hopefully glean a little bit of knowledge from you, someone with a ton of experience, and then obviously a very strong background in running and triathlon. So right off the bat, walk me through, because I'm not a runner. I've been doing triathlon for 10, 12 years, but I'm not a runner. I've never even done the marathon. What do I need to expect in this build up over the next 20 weeks to Chicago?
I think the first thing that we'll focus on is just kind of gradually building your miles up. I don't like to focus on total mileage too much.
Yeah.
I think we kind of just let the workouts dictate the volume. But I do think that if you've only been running 25 or 30 miles a week, that's probably not going to make a comfortable marathon experience.
No. Yeah.
You could go finish it and you would be fine. But if you want to run under 3 hours, we need to get you muscularly ready to handle running 6:52s. 3 hours, but you are pretty fit. I know you've had some pretty good bike splits at 70.3, so we know that aerobically you're there.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to get the running legs under you first.
Yeah.
So.
How come bike legs don't transition to running legs? That's the most frustrating part of triathlon, and then now just trying to do a standalone marathon. I got to be honest, that is frustrating.
I've always felt like it's because it's so much faster.
It's
when you're trying to run just an open running race. Sounds crazy, but to me, like running a half marathon is way harder than running or doing a 70.3.
So one thing you alluded to is my mileage has been a little bit low, 20, 25 miles per week, probably over the last couple of years, honestly. And I've just been doing that for 70.3 reasons. about 3 or 4 runs a week. What am I going to see in this build up to Chicago? I know we're not focusing on the mileage, but for a lot of people, they're thinking, how many miles do I need to do to get there comfortably? And then what is my mileage going to look like to hopefully do sub 3?
I imagine you'll get up to at least something in the 50s, just because you'll have those weeks where you've got a long run. And so that's going to naturally just kind of beef up the miles. Mm-hmm. So you might not necessarily be doing, it's not going to be 50 miles spread over 6 days. But if you run 20 on the weekend, it's pretty easy to get 30 miles out of the other 5 runs. Mm-hmm. But one thing we'll probably do to try to keep you safe is we'll keep one or two really, really low volume days, so that when you have that big day, you're not just piling it on right after that. We'll kind of oscillate the long run.
Okay. And for an athlete like me, that's something I really like to hear, because I need to be cautious in this build up, having such few mileage in my base. I know I need to be cautious in making sure that I'm injury free. All right. So again, only 2 weeks into working together, but most recently or earlier this week, I actually did a sprint workout. And I got to be truthful, that's the first time I've done sprints. I can't remember when. So why the heck am I doing sprints for marathon training?
So my love of sprinting goes back really, really far. I was in 8th grade, and I got a copy of Daniel's Running Formula. I think that's the book that everybody knows for the most part, if you're trying to find help in running. And the first thing I noticed as I was doing some of the plans as a 13, 14-year-old was I was never running as hard as I could. And so I always wondered, why am I not increasing my ceiling? I'm just kind of getting better at running these in-between paces. And so I've done a lot of research on it since then. And then a couple of the coaches that I read a lot of their stuff, they're really into running fast, because without having that ceiling, like if Usain Bolt goes and runs 6:52 pace, right, it's going to feel really, really easy until he dies, because he's only used to running for 20 seconds.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so I think we're obviously not going to turn you into an Olympic sprinter, but the things that we can take from that is it'll help you work on your mechanics, and it'll also just kind of increase that speed ceiling a little bit.
Looking at the training that you've been giving me so far, obviously I know we're still in the base phase of things. What other phases throughout should I expect?
Yeah, I think we'll have kind of 3 blocks. They won't be necessarily defined blocks, because we're always going to be mixing things in. But I think, everybody's got their own names for whatever all the phases are. But we'll have some sort of pre-competition phase next, and then we'll have some sort of specific race phase after that.
Okay.
And so the difference now is, like, we're in this base period and we're doing lots of volume, or we're getting to the volume. And it's not necessarily a lot of quality running, but we're doing some running a little bit slower than your target marathon pace, and we're doing some running that's significantly faster than your marathon pace.
Yeah.
Barring the biggest breakthrough. I think one of the misconceptions about the base that still kind of lingers around is that it's really just lots of slow, easy running.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of people have started to move away from that. I think in the distance running world, people kind of look at coaches like Arthur Lydiard and say, oh, look, all they did was run these crazy miles, and then they were magically really fast. But if you look at some of the athletes that he coached, they would have these long periods of crazy miles, but then they would run fast pretty much every day whenever they actually started their race-specific training. So they would be doing sprints or hills or something fast, even if it was just a little bit.
That's good.
That's something you saw probably from that first workout, is you were running fast, but if you totaled it all up, it was like 60 seconds of fast running, right, over the course of 45 or 50 minutes probably. And so it's not really enough to build up a lot of residual fatigue, but it's enough to get you neuromuscularly faster.
I feel it in the quads, all right? Don't say I'm not muscular fatigued. I still feel it in the quads. But we look at a lot of different metrics, a lot of different numbers. What metrics are we going to be looking at later on? Is the plan going to be heart rate based? Is the plan going to be power-based stride, which you've actually suggested that I purchase one of those stride power meters, or pace-based. What are the key metrics that we need to be looking at together?
So we'll be looking at two things with your power and with the pace. Those will be the main things. Your heart rate won't be really something that we train by, but it's good data to have after the fact. Okay. So we can kind of see the trend of your heart rate with the power and the pace. And then what we'll do with time is I'm expecting that the more that you run, especially as you kind of get better at running the higher volumes, you'll have your speed per unit of power is going to go up. So that would be essentially your efficiency, right? So if you're running 7-minute pace and it's 300 watts, the goal is maybe your threshold power doesn't necessarily go up, but you become better running at 300 watts. So then maybe you're in a month you're running 650 pace at 300 watts.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's something we'll keep a look at.
I think I definitely need to be a more efficient runner. So you've been supplying me the workouts 1 week at a time, and I suspect there will be some change in those schedules based off how everything's going, how I'm doing. But what are the key type of sessions that we'll be looking at? Are there test sessions along the way that, like, hey, you already know this is going to be something we need to do 10 weeks out, 5 weeks out? What are those?
Yeah, so we'll have a gradual build of distance at your marathon pace. And then a few weeks out, we'll do the last big one, and we'll probably we'll choose between a couple workouts, but what I think we'll end up doing is a set that I like to have marathoners do, and it's a 5K warm-up, and then you do 5 times 5K at your marathon pace with 1K steady in between. So you'll end up getting in a workout that's about 35K, which is going to be 21, 22 in there. Yeah. And then that'll be the last big one before the marathon, and that's a pretty good indicator.
Yeah.
Where your fitness is.
How far out is that one?
I'm planning about 4 weeks. We'll kind of see how you're responding to the longer runs physically, and it'll be somewhere between 3 and 5 weeks.
Okay. Really quickly, and maybe this is the last question, Keith, is for anyone else out there also looking to maybe break a PR, break 3 hours, what other advice do you have for athletes, runners?
I think it's don't fixate on running marathon pace. I think a lot of people make the mistake of doing lots of runs, like 2, 3, 4 times a week. Like all they're thinking about is their marathon pace. And really, that's something you don't even need to touch on a weekly basis. You can spend some time running just slower and then some time running just faster. I think what happens is people get kind of stuck in a rut trying to run that moderate marathon pace, when really we need to be kind of improving your 10K half marathon speed and lifting your threshold up than spending lots of time just in that in-between.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice, and I'm glad I didn't share all of my running logs with you over the past 6 months, because what you would have seen is a lot of 652 workouts. So I'm glad we are working together, and I'm getting my workouts from you now. So Keith, thank you so much for this. I know that we're going to have a chance to connect later on in the season, so if other people, again, make sure that you're subscribed below, following along on this journey, because Keith will be back at multiple times. We'll touch base. Keith, thank you again for the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.